Okay, let's move on to our next passage, Zechariah chapter 14. I believe that this is the last chapter of the prophet Zechariah, so this should be rounding off the message from this book. And it begins talking about this day, this special day of the Lord. Chapter 14. Behold, a day of Yahweh comes, when your plunder will be divided within you. For I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle, and the city will be taken, the houses rifled, and the women ravished. Half of the city will go out into captivity, and the rest of the people will not be cut off from the city. Then Yahweh will go out and fight against those nations as when he fought in the day of battle. His feet will stand on that day, on the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives will be split in two from the east to the west, making a very great valley. Half of the mountain will move towards the north, half of it will move toward the south. You shall flee by the valley of my mountains, for the valley of the mountains shall reach to Azel. Yes, you shall flee, just like you fled from before the earthquake in the days of Uzziah king of Judah. Yahweh my God will come, and all the holy ones with you. It will happen in that day that there will not be light, cold, or frost. It will be a unique day, which is known to Yahweh, not day and not night. But it will come to pass that at evening time there will be light. It will happen in that day that living waters will go out from Jerusalem, half of them towards the eastern sea and half of them towards the western sea. And it will be so in summer and in winter, meaning continuous. They'll always flow. Yahweh will be king over all the earth. In that day, Yahweh will be one, and his name one. All the land will be made like the Arabah, from Geba to Rimmon, south of Jerusalem, and she will be lifted up, and will dwell in her place from Benjamin's gate to the place of the first gate, to the corner gate, from the tower of Hananel to the king's wine presses. Men will dwell therein, and there will be no more curse, but Jerusalem will dwell safely. This will be the plague with which Yahweh will strike all the peoples who fought against Jerusalem. Their flesh will consume away while they stand on their feet, and their eyes will consume away in their sockets, and their tongue will consume away in their mouth. It will happen in that day that a great panic from Yahweh will be among them, and they will each hold on to the hand of his neighbor, and his hand will rise up against the hand of his neighbor. Judah will fight at Jerusalem, and the wealth of all the surrounding nations will be gathered together, gold and silver and clothing in great abundance. A plague like this will fall on the horse, on the mule, on the camel, on the donkey, and on all the animals that will be in those camps. It will happen that everyone who is left of all the nations that came against Jerusalem will go up from year to year to worship the King, Yahweh of armies, and to keep the Feast of Booths. It will be that whoever of all the families of the earth doesn't go up to Jerusalem to worship the King, Yahweh of armies, on them there will be no rain. If the family of Egypt doesn't go up and doesn't come, neither will it rain on them. This will be the plague with which Yahweh will strike the nations that don't go up to keep the Feast of Booths. This will be the punishment of Egypt and the punishment of all the nations that don't go up to keep the Feast of Booths. In that day there will be all the bells of the horses holy to Yahweh, and the pots in Yahweh's house will be like the bowls before the altar. Yes, every pot in Jerusalem and in Judah will be holy to Yahweh of armies, and all who sacrifice will come and take of them and cook in them. In that day there will no longer be a Canaanite in the house of Yahweh of armies. And that concludes Zechariah chapter 14. It's talking about this transformation that will happen in Jerusalem, the capital city. Actually, so much surrounding actually this capital city, because this is also the place of the king. It's also a place of the worship of God. The temple is in Jerusalem. And it begins with a battle, and it ends with a purification of worship. So it begins with this battle, whereby God will gather all the nations to attack Jerusalem, and then at Jerusalem, God will go and defeat all the nations. So it's kind of strange, but we've seen this theme already. God will almost make Jerusalem this target, and he will actually incite all the nations to come and to attack it. But as they attack it, God will attack them, and then God will defeat all of them. And he does this in a very spectacular way. I'll just mention a few things. This verse 4, this Mount of Olives will be split in two. And it's quite incredible, actually. He's talking about this mountain, and it will split in two. It says one goes up north, one goes down south, and you'll create this valley in between such that people can pass through them. And it's pretty crazy, the kind of scale of this deliverance and this power of God. When God comes, and he says here with his holy ones, it's kind of reminiscent of the splitting of the Red Sea, where God splits water and they can walk on dry land. But here, this is even more. Can you imagine something even more amazing than that? God splits a mountain and creates a valley. And then verse 5, you shall flee by the valley of these mountains. It's incredible. But the idea is that there'll be no mistake. God will do this. Yahweh my God will come, and all the holy ones with you. It's incredible. It's pretty. And also on that day, another thing is that there's this eternal day. Verse 6, it will happen, there will not be light, cold, or frost. And there's this unique day, not day, not night, but an evening time. It's saying that in the daytime there's night, there's brightness, there's sun, but in the night there's still continuous sun. It's crazy. And so it's almost not a reversal of creation, but an extension of the new creation. If you remember, in creation there was separation, there's nighttime and there's daytime, but now there's just complete daytime, perpetual daytime of this day of the Lord. And also on top of that, I think it mentions about this water, that there is this, verse 8, there'll be waters that just keep on flowing from the center of Jerusalem going out. And again, Genesis talks about this, the waters then split into all the waters and all rivers of the world. And in Revelation as well, we see that the waters that flow through the kingdom. And so water is a symbol of life, of blessing, and the source of it is this place, Jerusalem. So, okay, that's all I'll say about the attack that results in God coming and defeating the attackers. Now let's move on towards the end. Sorry I have to skip through all this. It's lots of good stuff. But towards the end, what we see is, this is quite cool. Verse 20, in that day, there will be the bells of the horses holy to Yahweh. So, not sure what the bells of the horses are. Maybe it's like those ding, 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 ding on the horses. I know cows were that, but here is, something on your pet, on your horse. Or maybe if you think of your car, the Mercedes-Benz has that little logo on the front. But instead of that logo, you have holy to the Lord. And the significance of this is that this idea of holy to Yahweh is usually only on the headdress of the high priest. It's talking about the high priest is holy. That's why he has to clean himself. He has to go through all this ritual. So there's the high priest, holy to the Lord. He represents all the people. But now, horses. The horses have this insignia, this brand name that belongs to God. And not only the horses, the cooking pots. So incredible, verse 21. Every pot in Jerusalem, Judah will be holy. And so, the things that used to be for sacrifice, you're just going to cook your, chow mein or something like that. And it's almost describing how no longer is just the temple the center, a concentration of holiness. The whole city becomes a temple, because the whole city is now holy. this extension of what was initially in the temple that was just special, just only God's people, now the whole city, and is cleansed and is purified. And so that's again the result of God coming to defeat his enemies, to save his people, and to bring life and blessing. It results in this wholeness of holiness in the whole city that God now, by implication, dwells in amongst his people. Yeah, so lots of forward looking there to Revelation chapter 21, I think. Yeah, lots of there about the holy city. And and this was in Zechariah. So yeah, okay, that's Zechariah. Let's move on to the last chapter. It's kind of tiring. There's a lot here.